Islam, Islam, Islam. I like to give high praise and glory to Father God Allah, the creator and sustainer of the universe. I like to rise and give high honors to all illustrious prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, etc. I like to rise and give high honors to illustrious noble prophet, Prophet Noble True Ali. And I like to rise and give high honors to each and every one of you out there in social media. It's a Sheikh Talik L coming to you with a deep blog regarding our favorite movie from all times now. Black Panther. First of all, I want to say no other turnout I ever seen for a movie except this movie. This movie got so many people turned up. Got a lot of people wearing dashiki, feeling good about themselves. I mean, all over. First of all, I just want to say that I believe the actors and those who were involved put a lot into it, a lot of research into it. They dug into a lot of African concepts, a lot of things. Just the idea of Wakanda being very a place that's not penetrable or easily to go into. There are civilizations in Africa or have been in Africa that it was very hard for modern man to actually get into. There's some places you had to fly a plane, like certain civilizations in Zimbabwe, where you couldn't get to unless you flew a plane. This is true, and I believe that the crew, or whoever, uh, Brian Coogler, and people who actually were involved in writing the script, or writing the story, and designing things actually took from those particular elements. But what I'm here to do is show you more science inside the movie, and this can probably help people understand what was actually going on. Okay. In media, we got this little debate that Killmonger is Malcolm X, T'Challa is Martin Luther King, Killmonger is the true hero, T'Challa is not, he sold out, so forth, so on. All right. And more science, we break things down to our golden measure of rule, the Holy Crown of Moorish Science Temple of America. For anyone who doesn't know about Moorish Science Temple of America, remember it was founded in 1913. It was restructured. It was a civic organization which was filed with an affidavit in the state of Illinois in 26. And then it was restructured again in 1928 with an affidavit in Cook County, making it a religious corporation. Now, our basis is religion. We deal with our faith. We build on the 5 principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And we use our right reasoning, what Allah has given us, to break down things not in a so dogmatic way, but using high science to actually understand common issues, because there's always a thin line that needs to be observed before you actually make a conclusion. All right, let's go into it. Brother T'Challa, as you would say, the Black Panther, you can say he represents the higher self. There's an innate underlying nature on both Killmonger and T'Challa. The innate or nature of it is to be free, or to have their people on top. Now, Killmonger, because of his nature of his tragedy or so forth, his whole understanding and his vision was blocked by his ego. His ego had pretty much built over, or had codified itself, or as we would say, latched on to an experience that he experienced as a child when he came in and saw his father murdered. So therefore, he harbored hate towards his own people, really, or to at least his inheritance. You can't be a king if you hate where you come from. He was never fit to be king. Now, T'Challa, he battled forth whether to keep the traditions or move forward. The issue is when he saw the faults of his traditional people, and that kind of worried him, because he wanted to fulfill the shoes of his father. But it was hard to do that when he seen actual faults in that. So how did he deal with it? T'Challa represents more of a balance. He represents the higher self, as we would say in the Moorish Science Temple of America, whereas Killmonger represents the lower self. Let's go into a chapter that deals with that. Chapter 3, Elihu's Lessons, the Unity of Life. Unity of Life, yeah. Let's go down. All right, so we do with this. Elihu says, when he's teaching, he says, again, Elihu met his pupils in the sacred grove and said, no man live unto himself, for everything is bound by cords to every other living thing. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will love and not demand love in return. They will not do other men what they would not have other men do unto them. See, T'Challa was like that. Killmonger wasn't like that. He went around brutally doing things to people in order to seek his gratification. Or T'Challa tried to see a means, even when he was wrestling M'Baku in the beginning. When he had to fight M'Baku, he could have killed M'Baku. He could have tossed M'Baku off the cliff if he wanted to. He could have choked M'Baku out. But he said, M'Baku, don't do this. Your people need you to rule. And guess what happened? It says this. Let's go back to the verse, and I'm gonna show you what, and I'm gonna finish what about what happened. It says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will love and demand love in return. They will not do other men what they would not have other men do unto them." Remember, it says, "No man live unto himself, for every living thing is bound by cords to every other living thing." Okay, so verse 2, that's what I just read, verse 2, and prior I just read verse 3 and 4, because I want you to understand that. I read it in that order because I want you to understand that T'Challa did something for M'Baku. He didn't do what he could have done to M'Baku because he didn't want that to happen to him. And what happened at the end of the movie, towards the end of the movie, spoiler alert, M'Baku came through for T'Challa. He could have killed T'Challa, took the throne, joined up with Killmonger to reign with Killmonger if possible. But at the same time, if you show someone love, it reciprocates back. That's a golden rule. That's an African principle. See, T'Challa reigned on African principles, right? Killmonger reigned on the oppressed experience of the African American principles, the go for self, because as so-called African Americans had adapted those lower nature principles from the slave oppressor. So this is why truly you notice that both sides had a European on their side. Killmonger ran with Claw, right? And the FBI, or T'Challa, ran with the FBI or the CIA agent. Both of them were pinnacle on helping both sides. But Killmonger was so greedy, or whatever, he was so bent on what he wanted to do, he would ended up killing him anyway, but he ended up killing Claw. I ended up spoiling him. Spoiler alert again. So we're dealing with the actions and what is guiding the actions. So, right. So as you can see that T'Challa principles are exhibited in T'Challa's actions, and you can actually observe this in this chapter, chapter 3, a lot of lessons, the unity of life. Okay, let's go further into the verses. It says, there are two selves, the higher self and lower self. The higher self is the human spirit, clothed in soul, made in the form of Allah. The lower self is the carnal self, the body of desires, is a reflection of the higher self, distorted by the murky ethers of the flesh. Okay, they are both Wakandans, T'Challa and Killmonger. They were both Wakandans in the sense they both had the same origins. They had the same desires to be with their people. But one person, Killmonger, his was distorted by his experience. If you go back to the instance where they were taking the heart-shaped elixir to actually give themselves the powers, but every time they took it, they had to be buried and they had to have the experience with the ancestors. Now, T'Challa, when he went to go see his ancestors, he had an open plain, a wide open plain, spacious plain. There was grass everywhere. There was trees. It was decorative with all type of colors. Really looking mystical. The conscious mind basically it represented the conscious mind being open, right? Being totally open. It represented that all his basically all you can say all his higher chakras are all open if you're into the chakras or so forth and so on. The blockages, especially in the crown chakra and the third eye chakra there were no blockages, so therefore he was able to experience more of an open, spacious experience in that other realm, and therefore he was surrounded, or he was surrounded by the four Panthers. Now, four means foundation, so therefore his foundation was set. He had a firm foundation, and so forth. Whereas when Killmonger had his experience, it took him right back to the hood, just like a lot of so-called African Americans who couldn't understand the movie, who didn't like the movie because it wasn't in the hood. They didn't like the movie because it wasn't a hood movie. You know what I'm saying? They couldn't relate to it because they're stuck. And Killmonger's experience, even though he'd been all around the world, he's ran with guerrilla fraction militants and all this type of stuff, his still experience, he could never really shake his experience of being in the hood and what happened to his father. So what happens, what goes on after that? He's stuck into the apartment. The apartment got him trapped. So even though he made it to Wakanda and he ascended to the throne, his foundation was in that apartment. He couldn't break free. So therefore it ended up being his demise at the end. Where T'Challa is ascended because he was free, even from the beginning. All right? So you can see that Killmonger, where his foundation was, and you can see where T'Challa's foundation was. Okay, let's go further. I'm going to skip a little quick down to verse 10. It says, the higher self is justice, mercy, love, and right. The lower self is what the higher self is not. The lower self breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, everything that harms. The higher self is the mother of virtues and the harmonies of life. What's another word for harmony? Balance. Okay. T'Challa was balanced. He brought balance. He was able to bring balance. Where when Killmonger was on the throne, everything, hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, he came in, he destroyed the traditions that were actually, when he destroyed the heart-shaped fruit and all that type of stuff that would stop anyone from becoming a next Black Panther. He killed an elder. He was willing to destroy everything in his path. That's how much hate he had. And you guys want to glorify that guy. I understand it. I understand your point of being aggressive and we need to take back what is ours. But at the same time, it still needs to be done in the justice side. And don't think that T'Challa did not harbor those same principles that Killmonger did, because T'Challa did something that what needed to be done. He still had a global understanding, because if he didn't, he would never set up those urban centers or try to take over the blocks in Oakland. The urban centers, that's part of having a global so-called African point of view. That's exhibited in our lessons too. I'm going to go on further. Okay, so now we have that Killmonger represents the lower self, T'Challa the higher self. You can see that he's more balanced, whereas Killmonger is not balanced. We talked about the foundation, which was exhibited in the visions that they had when they went into the other side to, I guess, seek guidance and so forth. So as you can see that Killmonger didn't really receive too much guidance, whereas T'Challa did receive his guidance and also was able to figure out complications on how to go about and deal with the process of what his father did and leaving people behind, having not because he did not have a pan global African view. His father didn't. That's why he left Killmonger and did not take Killmonger home. Okay, that might have circumvented Killmonger from becoming Killmonger and doing what he did. All right, let's go on. Okay, so this movie is very much so Moorish in idea, because the Moorish idea or the Moorish science idea is linked to African principles and so forth and so on. Okay, let's deal with the chapter on the magistrate and subject. Because in the magistrate and subject, you're going to get a full understanding of who T'Challa is. All right. So it says in this will be 29, chapter 29, magistrate and subject. O thou, the favorite of heaven, whom the sons of men, thy equals, have agreed to raise to sovereign power, and set as a ruler over themselves. Consider the ends of the importance of their trust far more than the dignity and height of thy station. So consider that the fact that they trust. This is what T'Challa was. He didn't really care about the throne. He didn't care about the throne, but he cared about his people and the fact that they trusted him. Well, how can I keep my people in a way? How can I serve the people more? Okay, thou clothed in purple and seated on the throne, the crown of majesty invested in thy temples, the scepter of power is placed in thy hand, but not for thyself were these ensigns given, not meant for thine own, but for the good of the kingdom. The glory of a king, his welfare of his people, his power, dominion, rests on the hearts of the subjects. Okay, so Killmonger did not exhibit that. He could not be king because he did not really care for the welfare of his people. He cared more for power. He cared for more his revenge. All right, because if he cared for the welfare of his people, he wouldn't have came in the way he did, and so forth and so on. Right? It was more bitterness instead of a driven vision that would actually bring everybody in harmony. And for a side note, if you were going to empower all the people by giving them military guns, high-tech weapons, how do you know their loyalty would be towards you? How do you know they wouldn't get a chance to overthrow you at any given chance? What T'Challa said, what he did was, let's start developing or having urban development, buying property, employing, teaching your own people. This is how you develop. If you read this chapter, it talks about that. You actually invest in your people. And the more you invest in the people, you invest in their loyalty, and their loyalty will come back to you. As it said in chapter 3, where it's saying that if what you do for another person will come back, it would, it reciprocate, the love will reciprocate, where the love will Killmonger, there was no love in a sense, because people have glorified, made him a hero. So when I understand the aggression that people want to get back from all the things that happened, and that's true. But at the same time, we have to move with wisdom and understanding. So, and time permits, let's break it down and go to is dealing with the history of Wakanda. Remember, Wakanda comes from an origin of the people who are called the originators. All right. Now, if you go into our Moorish, if you ever do, you can look this up online. You can get this book online for free. You can download it, I think, on hermetic.com or so forth. It got a PDF file. You can actually download it, or you can hit me up. I'll leave my contact, and I can get you a copy of this wonderful pamphlet. So let's go into the divine origin of the Asiatic nations. Actually, let's not do that one. Let's actually do Egypt, capital empire, dominion of Africa. All right, let's deal with that. Okay, now, the Moorish Science Temple of America, we teach that the original people are called Asiatics. All right, in this chapter, Egypt, the capital empire of the dominion of Africa, we talk about how those nations came together. In chapter 1, it says the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. All right. The old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father, Ham, and his family were second. Then came word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexem, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the father and the son. The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, in northwest and southwest was the father's dominion of Africa. In the later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. Okay, now if you know anything about the originators, and you know about that, the fact that they came together with other people, and they were able to fight off other races of people to populate Africa and populate the earth, so forth and so on. And then now, after a while, they formed the different tribes. The tribes came together when the vibranium meteorite came, boom. And then it was warring fractions, and then the spirit of Bass led the first Black Panther to the fruit, the heart-shaped fruit. He took the heart-shaped fruit. He was able to civilize everybody, so forth and so on, and they were able to civilize their whole society, come together, and form the Wakandan kingdom. Okay, this is pretty much saying the same thing. It just doesn't have the centerpiece hero like the Black Panther. But eventually, all these people came and forged a great empire at one point in time called Amexem. All right, so now, in that sense, we're dealing with a collective, expression of a collective, which is actually in a lot of African cosmologies and history, dealing with the collective point of our people coming together and being one, and pretty much having one original origin. This is traditional. This was in that movie. So for those who say it's not African, it's not a big deal, you need to brush up on what you need to read. A lot of people who are commenting don't necessarily read past Omar Tyree books or stuff they find in Barnes and Nobles. This knowledge is not going to be found in Barnes and Nobles. You're going to have to go to a so-called African bookstore, a so-called black bookstore. I'm talking about stuff from Leonard Jeffries, books by Dr. Ben Yakinen, Ivan Van Sertima, Henry Clark, J. Rogers, so forth and so on. Like, you're going to have to go far deep and dig some of this stuff up. I mean, it's not really that deep, but you can actually YouTube a lot of stuff and find the similarities between this movie and the stuff they're teaching from the great scholars that from before, and the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So, remember, basically the great social media debate on whether Killmonger, yes, he is a great anti-hero. I will say that he is an anti-hero, but at the same time, he's not a example of as they'll say, like he's a demonized hero in a sense where he's truly the hero and they want you to be passive like T'Challa and all that stuff like that, and you need to fight your own people and stuff like that, and they say, people are saying it starts with this violence amongst our own. Look, let's make it real clear. In the beginning of the movie, what is this T'Challa? What is this Black Panther? Who did he save in the beginning of the movie? He saves people kidnapped by what supposed to be like a representation of Boko Haram. He frees the young ladies out of the hands of these rebels who were probably going to sell the young ladies, but they weren't Wakandans at all. They weren't Wakandans, so therefore T'Challa did have a global so-called African point of view. He did save people who weren't Wakandans because the idea is that in order to really overthrow the oppressor, you have to overthrow the oppression inside yourself. You have to clean house. T'Challa had to clean house and make sure his kingdom was stable. The leader had just passed. He had to make sure that he did what was right. He had to make sure he was able to make sure the throne was stable first before he moved out. He has a desire to move out. The rest of them were saying stay within the boundaries. He said we are going to eventually move out, but we got to clean house. In order for our people to really arise, we have to clean house. We got people with warring fractions. We have warring fractions that existed way before the first colonizer landed on the continent of Africa or America. That's the reason why they were able to colonize us, because we were at odds against each other. Remember that. Don't think that the European came and everything just went haywire. It was going haywire prior to him coming. Is the fact that we teamed up with him. And just like Killmonger teamed up with Claw in order to get his way. See, what happened was the Black Panther with the CIA agent, he didn't, the people are saying the CIA agent was the hero and all that. He wasn't the hero. He shot down one plane. He was up there shooting planes. That stuff didn't count. He didn't save the day, because if that one ship left, it would just be one ship of weapons. I'm sure the Black Panther could have recovered. It really wasn't a big deal. They could probably track down the plane before it even got to its destination. It's nothing. The true aim of the end of the scene was to get everything back to normal. To civilize, to get all the trial, to stop the warring within the house and get the throne back. He didn't really, he was just there. It was just like, okay, and even then he still needed direction from T'Challa's younger sister on how to work the plane and fire the gun and what to do when it started, it malfunctioned for a little bit. So from at the end of the day, it's, if you look at it, the independence of the Wakandans was still in their hand even during the battle. He helped out a little bit. It's almost like, you in the middle of a basketball game, the ball goes out of bounds all the way out. And, one of the little kids is playing, you ask little man, go get the ball. That's all he did. You know what I'm saying? Little man, go get the ball. Throw the ball back. Yo, help. We say help. Little man goes to get the ball and throw the ball back, and we keep playing. That's what it was. It was just like, he didn't really have a real defining moment in that movie where he, that man changed the course of the movie. He didn't. He was just there. So, as mostly you'll have a token, in the movie. It's a Disney movie. What do you expect? But at the same time, the power of the heroism is still in T'Challa's hand. It's still in the hands of his warrior, his general. It's still in the hands of his sister. Still in the hands of the Peter's character. So we're dealing with I'm approaching on a half hour. All right, everyone. Look, hope you understand. Hope you get the blog. Know that more science is definitely inside this movie, because more science has embodied many universal principles that come out of the continent of Africa from the first civilizers, which is our people, our race. T'Challa is not a sellout in a sense. He does have an understanding of government, which I think our people need to understand. You can't just put weapons in people's hands and try to take over, because at the end of the day, you still going to have to govern the people who you gave weapons to. And if they don't like you, they're going to be aggressive towards you as much as you were aggressive towards, or your aims were of aggression was. So, learn the lesson, higher self, lower self, check your foundation, make sure your thoughts and your conscience is clear before you go about making things happen in your life and affecting other people, because what you do could pretty much duplicate in the lives of others. All right? Peace and love.